In the first part, we talked about synaptic circuits, nanorobots, nanomachine for molecular level control or actuation, transportation, and target selection. This is a very hot topic, futuristic topic, nanorobot for many different treatment and biomedical application. So we are going to look at some of the work that is going on. So what is the purpose of, what is the goal to achieve control of medicines or diagnostic tools and technique at molecular level? Why we need that? So one of the things I think I mentioned in chemotherapy cancer, as the chemotherapy fluid is injected into human body or the tablet is swallowed, that chemical is spread all over the body and it kills many healthy cells along with the cancerous cell. So it actually makes the patient very weak, and it creates and it destroys the immunity of the patient because it destroys many of the cells. And also many other treatment, not only cancer treatment, when we inject the drug using IV or swallow it through mouth, there are lots of redundant drug content that will be either staying in the body or it will be circulating through the whole circulating system. So maybe only 20% of it will be used, 80% will be the redundant, stay as a foreign element. So that creates lots of side effects. So if we can have precise control of the distribution of the drug or diagnosis, molecular by molecular, cell by cell control, then we can do pinpoint treatment without creating lots of additional side effects. So that's why in medical treatment and diagnosis, having precise control at the molecular level will be a dream. So for cancer treatment, one of the goal is to remove cancerous cell by precise application or injection of the medicine on one cell at a time or one molecule at a time. Or you want to basically target one molecule and using a laser or radio frequency signal, you want to destroy that cell. So, and to implement that, we can do either imaging, that means we need extremely high efficient camera, or monitoring like microwave or ultrasound or something that will be very, very precise to the molecular level, or payload delivery. We are delivering the drug using IV fluid or capsule or tablet, but can we control that payload delivery? Is it like those, what is those tablet and capsules or IV fluid when injecting? Those are just vehicles. Inside that IV fluid or capsule or tablet, it is carrying some drugs, some biochemicals to treat, right? But the capsule, tablet or IV fluid, these are the carrier. So this is delivering some payload to human body. So if we can control those payload deliveries at the molecular level, that would be a groundbreaking. And powering and measurement device. We do have lots of monitoring device like pacemaker, heart monitor, pulse monitor, and all those in device. And in future, if you want to embed any electrochemical or electromechanical devices to measure or to monitor something inside our body, then can we make those measurements extremely efficient? And then the also question is, how do we power them if it is embedded inside human body? So all those, that's why if we can have molecular level control, then we can achieve all those. And many of the embedded, human embedded devices will not only be purely electrical, it will be mechanical as well. So there comes MEMS, those will be micro electromechanical systems. And in future it will be NEMS, nano electromechanical systems, right? So So if we want to achieve all of this, what do we want? We want to basically have the ability to control the functions, control their movement, a very, very highly accurate level, and the signals they generate inside the human body, or the signal they want to detect, the detection efficiency has to be extremely, extremely efficient if we want to embed this type of device, self-powered embedded device inside human body.
Can I get a short idea of what the use of MEMS like?
So MEMS in general, it's electromechanical device. Let's say a pressure sensor.
Okay.
A piezoelectric pressure sensor is one very simple examples of MEMS.
Yeah, okay.
So let's say you want to monitor the blood pressure inside the artery up close when you put in a stent. So if you can put a piezoelectric MEMS somewhere inside around the heart, it can basically monitor the blood pressure through these arteries using electromechanical phenomena. So this is one example of MEMS. There can be other types of MEMS that can be used inside human body. So all these different types of nano machines or nano robots, including, and some of them will be using MEMS and NEMS, we want to see overall design flow and what are the types of those. So when we talk about nano robots will have three basic components. Number one, there has to be a bunch of sensors, whether it's pressure sensor, electrochemical sensors, and it's a robot, it needs to move, travel through human body, it has to have a motor, right? And also, while you are injecting those nanorobots of the size of a blood cell, so that it can travel through blood circulation, why you are sending it? You are either monitoring something or delivering something. So you have to communicate with those nanorobots from external device. So what should be the communication techniques involved? So there will be communication circuitry. I didn't do anything. Okay. So nanomotor, nanosensor, and the communication devices and techniques, those will be the three major functional block of any nanorobot we have to design. And then for each one of them, let's say for sensor design, are we going to talk about silicon-based sensor design, MOSFET or RFID-based design, or a non-silicon-based sensor design? And communication technique can be regular electromagnetic technique using electromagnetic pulse, but that may interfere with something else inside the human body if the EM pulse are too strong. So can we use the molecular level, biomolecular, biochemical communication, because neurons, they don't use pure EM, they're like more of biochemical signal communication. So what type of communication techniques we need for a specific type of nanorobots? Those are some of the design questions we have to basically explore. If first you need to know what is the intended purpose of the nanorobot. So, what is the motivation? One of the motivation, this is actually a presentation I attended many, many years ago. Some people in biomedical research, they were basically, their goal was to control the undesirable and uncontrollable cell growth, ultimately, that is cancer. Cancer, basically some cells become rowdy and it grows like uncontrollably, and that destroys organ by organ. That is cancer, right? So every year about 13% of the total death is related to cancer. And it is a never-ending area of research because always people are suffering from new types of cancer every year, every day. So, why we need a nanorobot? Why we need a nanorobot? Traditional methods of cancer treatment or similar type of disease treatment, it lacks selectivity. I cannot pinpoint the cancerous cell or affected body parts, and the whole process is painful. Because if you have seen any cancer person up close going through chemotherapy, it's painful. It's very painful. So, now in case of nanorobots, it will be very, very target specific. We will deploy the drug only when the nanorobot reaches a very, very specific location. Let's say this is the cancerous cell location. When it reaches, only the communication signal will be sent. It will open the door, or it will puncture a sac to release the drug at pinpoint accuracy. So one of the main motivation why we need nanorobots, we need very target specific application of drugs or monitoring, whatever we're talking about. So it will be efficient in terms of time to implement or adopt the treatment, and also the efficiency of the treatment technique. So that is the main motivation for looking for nanorobots. So now let us look at the components of the nanorobots. The main component is the sensor, which will sense the defective or disease affected cell from normal cell, right? You need some sensors. So in silicon-based approach, this is just one of the possible design from one of the early paper. For silicon design device, basically it uses some regular active and passive electrical component like transistor, capacitor, right? Some amplifier, analog amplifier. And this particular sensor design taken from one of the reference paper, it is based on differential capacitance. This sense amplifier has two sets of capacitance controlled by a bunch of transistor. So when it senses something, there is a charge difference will appear, and that difference will tell us what we are sensing, right? Under normal cell and abnormal cell, the potential difference across these two capacitance will be different, and that difference is the sensing. What is sensing? Electrical sensing. When you are sensing some particular element or agent or molecule which touches the transistor surface, it changes the electrical balance of that transistor, and that change in electricity or voltage potential is the sensing, right? So, and between the dummy capacitor and the sense capacitor, there will be some voltage difference, potential difference, because it will have some different capacitances, and it will be intentionally designed differently with different parameters so that we can detect the difference or change. And then people are now exploring other, so that the design will be very similar. The difference will be, are we going to use silicon-based transistor? There can be, if you look at the literature, you can find 100 different types of sensor design. But those sensor design will be made of some passive element, some active element, and some amplifiers or other comparators, other circuitry. So how do we implement this using silicon-based device or non-silicon-based device? So people are now exploring this type of graphene, carbon nanotube, or molybdenum disulfide. Other types of molybdenum disulfide is one of the things originally the researchers they promoted. It would be very good for sensing. So these type of graphene-based transistor or CNT-based transistor, rather nanomaterial-based transistor, people are exploring to be used as a device for nanosensors. Now let's talk about the communication method. Communication method, the regular communication for any wireless communication from inside and outside the body. The first thing that comes to your mind is conventional electromagnetic wireless communication method, which all got used to. Right? Every device we are using, these are based on EM wireless signal. Right? And then if we want to scale it down, if we want to basically embed it, the antennas, the sizes can be further reduced. Then from regular EM, we enter into nano electromechanical system, NEMS, and those NEMS will have electrical device, mechanical device, as well as nanoscale antenna, but it will be still based on EM communication. Or there can be other types of communication, vibration or something else. And the third one is molecular communication approach. Those are mostly biochemical signal processing. And then fourth one is DNA-based communication. So these are the different communication methods people are exploring to implement nanorobots. So these are some of the basically elaboration. I'm not a communication expert, so I cannot explain all the details, but just from some of the textbook or reference material, we have collected this figure. It's showing the difference in terms of how an electromagnetic communication, which is an electromagnetic wave, versus molecular communication, where some ionized molecules or biomolecules will carry the communication signal. So, and in some research, they actually have done some comparison between, because these are the two dominant communication techniques currently under investigation for nano communication, nanorobot level communication. And they compared some of the available, based on some of the design parameters, range, transmission rate, energy consumption, and time. How much time it takes, what is the range it can transmit signal. We're talking about the very, very small scale devices, nanoscale devices. So this one can go up to 1 meter when we're talking about MEMS and NEMS, but this one is a much, much smaller scale. It's very accurate at much smaller dimension, and transmission rate is much higher. This is much smaller. Energy consumption is very high because we're talking about real physical electrical device. These are biomolecule, which is very, very low energy. So it looks like that also time consumption, how much time it takes to effectively transfer a signal or communicate a signal from one place to other. So it looks like that it is still not one-to-one replacement. Depending on which communication approach we can adopt, it depends on application. It depends on where you are using this device, right? So the selection of communication technique based on this data, we can conclude that selection of communication technique will be dependent where, how, and why we are using that nanorobots. So this is kind of a conceptual diagram of a nanorobot swimming through human blood. So this is, I'm talking about, this is the presentation. So they're tracking the injection of magnetic particles that binds to cancerous cell using a nanorobot. The idea is this nanorobot, this is like a submarine, small submarine is basically swimming through the blood circulation. And it will have micro camera. We already have those. If you look at the endoscopy is less like a small tube with a camera on top of it. They will inject it through here. They basically, it will travel through your body and then take cameras, and then that's how endoscopy is done, right? So exactly same thing. Now they want to size it down much smaller, so that it can basically, instead of a wire pushing it, it can flow by itself through blood circulation. So it will have the sensor capacitors, the payload, the drug, and micro camera. So this is our swimming tail kind of antenna. So when it detects the cancerous cell, payload will be released. So now how we are going to monitor where this nanorobots is traveling? So one proposal is this small capsule, its movement can be basically, first using a very high resolution MRI machine, we will detect where the cancerous cells are. And then with whatever communication technique we adopt, we will monitor the traveling, the flow of these nanorobots, right? And then whether it will send a heat signal or radiation signal to this nanorobot to actually kill that cancerous cell. Or it can release some chemicals on the cancerous cell to burn it, right? So that level pinpoint detection, or it can say it will have just a actuator, some heat actuator, it will create enough heat to burn that, or it will create a laser, some radiation, electromagnetic radiation to burn that cell, or it can be just releasing of a chemical payload. So it's basically we will kill the cancerous cell, leaving all the healthy cells unaffected. That's the whole thing. Now the next part is the nanomotor. So what type of nanomotors that can be used for this type of small nanorobots? People are exploring many different types of, definitely we cannot put a real motor, electrical motor, we will not have a that size motor, so that you have to come up with some other ways to make sure that the robot is moving, right? You have the antenna, you have the communication, you have the payload, but it has to move. But can you just put a propeller, like a propeller board, and then it will basically, that propeller will kill all the cells, right? Or it will cut through our vein and come out of the blood circulation, right? So we cannot have a regular propeller like a real submarine or like those propeller boat, right? Or a plane. So we have to find another way to basically integrate the motion action into a nanorobot. So what type of motors we are basically talking about? So in biomedical world, most of these type of living being or cells, where they get power from? First let us look at, they get power from proteins. Proteins are the energy reservoir, energy source for all the living beings. It's like our gas tank, right? So, and these proteins are also known as molecular motors because they provide the energy to move, energy to take any action. So proteins are the nanomotors' main energy source, right? So now in the question is, what are the different types of protein-based motors naturally we can get? 3 types of cell-based motors have been identified by researchers. One of them is myosin, which moves on actin filaments, dynein, which uses microtubulus as a trackers, and kinesin, which uses microtubulus as tracks, basically to keep its motion going. Now the question is, this mechanism used by these protein-based motors, how this energy it gets the energy to move. These are biochemical elements. Inside them, they have chemical energy stored. So that chemical energy is converted to mechanical energy, which basically creates the movement. Because these are biological cells we are talking about, biological entity. Inside them it has biochemical or chemical energy stored. So they have a way to convert that chemical energy into mechanical energy, right? And the mechanism that is used to convert the chemical to mechanical energy is called ATP hydrolysis. That process is called ATP hydrolysis, and that is kind of the main energy conversion mechanism inside all those motors. In internal combustion engine, what do we do? We inject fuel into the engine chamber at a very, very high speed, and then we ignite it. We ignite that gas, and it creates basically very, very high pressure vapor that moves the engine, right? That's how it's basically. Now, if you have 6-cylinder burning those fuel, you have a 6-cylinder engine, you have 4-cylinder or 8-cylinder engine, right? You need more cylinder burning those fuel, you get higher energy, that thrust. Same thing here, the process of converting mechanical energy, chemical energy, mechanical energy is called ATP hydrolysis process. So ATP hydrolysis process occurs when it breaks down this ADP molecule and an inorganic phosphate molecule that creates an energy burst. And for every ATP, this is kind of amount of energy it creates. So again, you can kind of spend some time, because depending on the application, how much of energy you need, that will determine what should be the strength of your nanomotor, and that will determine which of these three approach or other approach you are going to basically adopt to implement your nanomotor. So in the nature, there are some examples of nanomotors, as we mentioned, 3 of them, and these are the some examples based on research, the actual research of these 3 types of nanomotors. The first one is showing myosin. The second one is the kinesin and dynein. So, and they are comparing with a regular conventional motor. It's like a bipedal linear motor, these 3. So, and their source is ATP. And this is a rotary motor, and also following an actual biological entity or cell. They are trying to create a rotary motor like this. So, and it appears in the nature, and they are comparing with a motor like this. So, what this research group is trying to tell us that the kind of nanomotor we need in the nature, inside all those biological entity, there are already this nanomotor existing. Now we have to find a way to utilize them into our nanomotor, nanorobot design. So this is further elaboration on molecular motors. Since I'm not from biological science background, so after spending a lot of time, I didn't understand more than 5%. So I'm just presenting it as it is, summarization of the research without knowing exactly. I know what is going on, but I don't know how to explain it simply because I do not know all the detailed biological terms. So, these research groups, there are more than one groups from which I summarize this content from, and they also are prescribing that there are other forms of naturally occurring biomotors or nanomotors exist in different living being. One is the ion channel, DNA and RNA processing enzymes, ribosomes, light-powered electron pumps. All those already existed in biological beings, and this can be utilized as biomotors or nanomotors. So, if you want to select or synthesize an artificial nanomotors, what are the, or you have to select one from naturally available. So, what are the features or criteria you have to look for? So, one of the main thing is that you should be able to achieve the controlled direction you want to move that nano robot to, right? So from activation to controlling its movement, whichever nanomotor gives you better control on that, that should be your number one goal, right? And then there are other attributes from biochemical requirements. As I said, this needs a great deal of understanding from biological science or drug delivery to kind of elaborate on those. So this is actually an actual design. So I left that part because that I do not have clear idea about. But based on all this research and observation from all this group, what Sandia National Lab is trying to do, they studied those naturally occurring nanomotors thoroughly, understood their properties and how they work and how it can be actuated. So they tried to design a small MEMS-based nanomotor by themselves, mimicking the behavior of those naturally occurring nanomotors. So, and the design they came up with, it was a proposal, it's a 20 years old proposal. It is based on MEMS, and the measures, it's the total design, the prototype they actually used is about 200 micrometer. 200 micrometer is small enough to be injected with body fluid. So it's very small, So it is at the experimental level, and it also have some specification and what it can be done, what frequency it can measure. And they are expecting that this type of nano motor, it can be basically controlled precisely. And this group, they call it as a nano tractor, as it like is a tractor of nano scale size. If you have big lawn, many of you, like my neighbors, both of them have tractors, because he carries around all the big tree trunks and all that debris from his lawn and throws it in the Blue River right behind my house. So, and also anybody who has a farmhouse, you have a tractor. So, it's basically to carry around things. So, this particular Sandria group, they did not basically prescribe what it will be used for. They are just trying out, they're trying to come up with a design of a nanomotor, a tractor, which can travel through human veins. small size. And if they are successful, probably they can reduce it. And this shows different parts, moving parts and steady parts of this tractor. Now, one of the things researchers in the nanomotor design or investigation area, what they are trying to do, because it is not possible to have a physical motor with a rotor, so what they are trying to do, how to make this robot work. So they are trying to come up with some mechanism which can mimic the way human or insects, they move forward, right? The human, we basically take steps. We take steps like this, right? That is one way. On the other hand, some insects, they basically shrink, elongate. That's how they move. So that is the insect, some of the insect movement. Some insects, some animals, including human being, we have foot to move. So that's what basically these people in University of Edinburgh, England, they are basically investigating whether we can come up with small nanomotor that can work like, that can be trained like the way we learn how to walk. So that is one research group. They are exploring another way to basically use internal chemical, electrochemical or mechanical properties to make this nanomotor work or move. New York University and Nanjing University from China, they also had this similar research. They are also trying to come up with some sort of structure, some sort of mechanism, DNA-based powering for it to move forward. Because the challenge is, how do you basically force that nanorobot to move? So this is another research. Again, I didn't get time to deep dive into their work. So, ultimately, what researchers are trying to do, they're trying to develop a small vehicle. Small car. It's maybe not in the shape of regular car with wheels and steering wheels, but they're trying to develop a small car or vehicles of nanoscale size. So, biological part I did not understand, but this part I understand very well, what they are trying to do. But if you think about, they want to develop a small carrier, we can call it a car or vehicle, to move through human body to either detect something or to apply heat or apply radiation or apply some medicine to treat something, right? That's the whole goal. And for anything that is moving, whether it's a car or it's an aircraft or it's a boat, what do you need? You need motor, you need cargo compartment, you need fuel source, you need wheels or some mechanism to move. Whether it's like human-like walking movement or insect-like movement or some mechanism. So there's a wheel action, suspension, axle, sensors, antenna, and communication. So you need all these things. This is thing for balancing, this is for detecting, this is for communicating. So you need a vehicle of nanoscale size that can travel through human body and that will have all the functions like a common vehicle, right? And they are also now thinking about how the wheel will become. Will it be DNA based or some sort of protein based wheel, right? Will move, right? And then the engine, the motor, they're exploring different ways and mechanisms to implement the motor. This is the fuel cell, fuel source, conventionally we have sunlight or fuel. Is there any biomolecular source or anything else to basically power that, or body thermal energy, right? The axles are bearing for balancing, so other forms, right, chemicals. So these are the different, basically, they're comparing with vehicle parts and how each of these vehicle parts can be implemented using biological entity.
So the chassis is made of?
Maybe some proteins or some bio.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So cargo transport, inside the cargo you will have basically all the drugs or detection or whatever is like your trunk of the car, right?
So basically it is for drug delivery.
Is either for drug delivery or for detection.
Detection.
Instead of that cargo, instead of medicine, it can have a bunch of sensor to detect whatever it's trying to detect, right? Or if it is like an endoscope or it's trying to take image, at the front it will have a camera. That's what they were showing here, like it will be a robot traveling through human body with a camera on top, right? So it's very interesting comparison, and this is a Rice University, they actually, now they're talking about a vehicle to be designed to be used as a nano robot or nano vehicles, and Rice University, another very leading private university in nanotechnology research, and they tried to come up with some chemical-based vehicle design for kind of implement the concept from the previous slide. So, and they have suspension, some chemical bonds, right?
I'm wondering on a point, like whenever any molecules passes through it should be absorbed on the surface sometimes. So how it will move like
Well, definitely, yeah, there is something, someone who is working on the material science or the chemical science, because, yeah, you were right, if you are putting this drug load on a molecular vehicle, using some biomolecule or some chemical
it must
agent.
pass through any
Oh yeah,
any,
yeah. So as it is moving, it should not be absorbed by something else before it reaches its destination. Well, all those questions need to be answered. Yeah, it's like you are driving from here to St. Louis with your car. The wheels, the barrels, the beer should not fall apart after driving 10 miles, right? It should be stable enough, robust enough, so that it can withstand the wind, the rain, the friction of the road, so that it can reach St. Louis, right? Same thing, we have to address those issues, otherwise it will absorb.
You drive your car down the road and it just sticks to the road, you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Basically, we need Toyota.
So, they are basically exploring fullerene sphere, this rice group, as the wheel. So this group, because fullerene is one form of carbon, it's a spherical form of carbon. So this group is exploring fullerene as nano car, this nano vehicle. So it is not just somebody dreamed about it, they actually put lots of thought and investigation and research, and they are trying to implement it. So, and this is another research, university of some university in Germany, and they are also trying to develop similar wheeled vehicle, and they have come up with some other shape. It's not like, it's more like an insect than it looks like a car, right? And it has some of the specification they have used in their research. So this is like a more up close, as you can see, kind of something extended, probably an insect-like kind of movement, right? So this is kind of elaboration of their research. Same thing here, more figures from the research. So this was a very elaborate research. As I said, I was not able to understand most of the thing. So this is kind of a summary of different, the summary of those research they have done, different types of nano motors, nano cars to implement those nano robots. And these are the steering mechanism, because we were talking about a car or moving parts, it has to be the steering, and how they propagate, and what are the fuel source. Each of those nano robots or nano motors, people or nano vehicles they're exploring. This is just a summary of the things I have explored. Okay? So, when I prepared this lecture note, at that time ChatGPT was not there, otherwise I could have done a much better job. So that ends this, but this is a very, very complex area, this nano machine or nano robot for biomedical application, nano machines in general. It's a huge area by itself within biomedical engineering, pharmaceutical research, or drug delivery research. So, I am anticipating there will be more and more interest in this area, because as we are moving to the era of precision medicine, right? You know that University of Missouri system is developing the Precision Medicine Institute. It's a $220 million investment. There are lots of federal programs under NIH and Department of Defense Congressional Special Allocation for Biomedical Research. So they're investing a ton of money to basically promote this type of research. So those who are working in biomedical engineering, this is something you can explore. So that is the end of this lecture, application of nanotechnology for biomedical and health application. So after the spring break, I will probably introduce one or two more topics, that will be the end. But now it is your job. So I want you to basically during this spring break, think very carefully and try to make a kind of template, draft plan for your paper. What are the major things you want to address in your paper? And then start putting together a plan. So right after the spring break, what I want from each one of you, kind of a plan, not the paper itself, a plan, kind of an idea about the major sections and subsections of the paper, that what are the different topical area within the selected area you have identified for your research paper. Give me a kind of a plan for your paper, and then each one of you should meet with me individually in the week after spring break to basically go over that plan, and then I can give you very specific instruction on each one of your paper, how to basically make a strong complete paper, because ultimately your grade will be decided on that final paper. So that's all for today. So I hope